Hey everyone, I'm Robert Brennan and we just finished pressure canning a batch of chicken stock, so stay tuned and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so there's a few basic tools that you're going to need to get started with pressure canning. First and most obvious is a pressure canner. Now I'm using a Presto 23 quart model, and everything that we're going to be talking about is going to be for that model. Now, you can use any pressure canner that you have, you just have to make sure that you reference that manual. So if you're not using the exact same pressure canner as I am, please just reference your manual for anything else. Otherwise, all the basics will apply to any of the pressure canning. So we have the pressure canner. Next, obviously, we're going to need a flat of cans. Now I'm using 500 ml cans. You can use any size that you find appropriate, but for this particular one, we're going to use the 500 mils. Next, you're going to want to get yourself a high heat ladle. This is going to hold about a cup. You need a canning funnel. This is a little bit different than a regular funnel. It has quite a big opening at the bottom, so you can get different kind of meats or fruits through. So get yourself a canning funnel. Get yourself a pair of canning tongs. These are so you can pull the cans in and out of the water. And obviously you're going to need something to can. So we have a fresh batch of chicken stock, and that's what we're going to be using today. So first things first, we got to talk sterilization. You have to make sure that you're sterilizing. It's really important that you're keeping a clean, sterile environment in everything that you use when you're canning and jarring. If you don't, that can lead to bacteria, that can lead to botulism, right? So we want to be safe. We want to make sure we're creating a good product, so sterilize. The best way to do that is boil. Now obviously we have quite a few things that we need to boil, right? We're talking about all the equipment and all the cans that we plan to use. So why not just use your pressure canner, fill it up with water, boil the water, put everything in, and we'll sterilize that way. So take the pressure canner, take the lid off, we'll set that aside for now, and then we're just going to go ahead, fill this up with water, set it on the stove top, let it boil, and then we'll add everything in. So the jars were in there for 20 minutes, and now we're just going to remove them and just put them on this clean mat. Because the glass was really hot in the boiling water, they're going to dry out pretty fast, so we're really ready to get started. Now the one thing we're going to need is our chicken stock, so let me grab that. Now I put down these gloves so that we can place the chicken stock on the counter. This has been boiling just for a few minutes. I just brought the chicken stock back up to boil. We want to use boiling chicken stock when we add it to the jars. This is called hot packing. And what that's going to do is help keep everything sterilized as we're packing it into the jars. Now what we're going to want to do is take our funnel and place it right inside of the jar and essentially just start filling them up. So now that we're getting close to the top, one of the things we want to do is we want to keep something called headspace. Now what that is it's just dead air that is about an inch from the top of the jar to sort of the top of the food. So you can kind of see that one of the great things about this canning funnel is if you only fill just to the top of the canning funnel, then it adds that 1 inch of headspace in for you. So you can just go ahead and make sure that as you're filling it up, you just go right to the canning funnel. Now again, like I said before with the caps, basically all we did was we just dunked them into the water, rolled them around really quick, brought them out, let them dry, and we'll just go ahead and carefully place those on. And we're being sure not to touch any of the inside of that. And then we're just going to add the ring. And you only want this to be just thumb tight. You don't really want to crank it on there hard. Now we're just about ready to do our canning process, but what we need to do is we need to take some of the water that we use to sterilize out of the pressure canner. Now I'm going to take all of the water out because there's a little line near the bottom. That's going to be our fill line for the water. So usually what I do is I just dump out and reserve whatever I need to make it to that fill line. But just so you guys can actually see where that fill line is on the interior of the canner, I need to sort of dump out all the water. So I'm going to do that and I'll show you the fill line. You can see there's a line here, and you're looking for the same kind of indentation, but it's just lower. It's right about here, and that's where we're going to actually fill the water to. So we're going to add the canner back to the stove top, turn it up to high heat for now, And we're going to place the jars back into the canner. Now you can see what I've done here is I've arranged the cans so that there's a little bit of space in between each of the cans. This is so that if they do jostle, they don't hit each other. Now we're going to go ahead and place the lid on. Now in my particular model, there's this little V notch here, and there's a little arrow that's a little V on the handle here as well. So in order to lock this lid into place, you have to match up the V's. Now when we reach significant pressure in the canner, what's going to happen is this airlock is going to pop up, and that's going to lock the lid into place. So we're waiting for this airlock to pop up. Next thing we want to do once we've reached a steady stream of steam coming from the steam vent is place the 15 psi weight on top. This will start to increase the pressure inside of the chamber. Now we've almost reached 15 psi, which is roughly around the pressure that I need for my area, between 14 and 15 psi. And what I mean by my area is my relation to sea level. So the closer to sea level you are, the less pressure that you're going to need for the same amount of time. So if you're very close to sea level, you're only going to need 11 pounds of pressure for the 20 minutes versus where I live, which is about 2,000 feet above sea level, which is going to need 14 to 15 pounds of pressure for 20 minutes. So again, refer to your manual to know what you guys are doing if you have a different model than I have. Other than that, once we reach 14 pounds of pressure, we should see the weight start to rock a little bit, and that will mean that it's trying to get more pressure built and it's just slightly letting it out. So we're about to reach that pressure any second, and when we do, all we have to do is then maintain it, okay? So we can turn the heat down on the oven to about medium heat. And you can just start to hear that happening right now. So we'll go ahead and turn it down to just about medium heat. And this means that we're able to start the timer now on the canning process. So we'll start the timer for 20 minutes. And we can just let it sit. All right, timer just went off. So now we're gonna have to let this depressurize. So the best way to do that is just turn off the heat and then carefully move it over to a cold part of the stove. One of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to try to release the pressure manually. You want it to actually just go down in pressure on its own. And then that will release the airlock in the back, and then we'll be able to open up the lid and get the jars out. So the pressure in the chamber is fully released now, so we can go ahead and remove the weight and then twist and unlock the lid. Now when we pick this up, there's still going to be a lot of heat and steam in here, so we want to pick it up away from us. Like so. Just let the steam rise out. And we can just move that off to the side as well. And now we can go retrieve our jars. So that sound you can hear now is the seals being created on all of the jars. So we're completely done at this point, and basically you can still hear some popping and snapping happening. That's fine. It's going to probably take a good few hours before you end up with having fully created seals. And when the seals are fully created, you should be able to push down on the top of the lid and not hear a snap. So if I take one of these jars that we still have from the store that I haven't sealed yet, and we press down on the lid, you can hear that there's a little bit of play. When we press down on the lids from the ones that we just sealed, some of them still have a little play, but most of them are at the sealed point. Basically what we want to do is we want to let these cool completely, and if there is that play noise on it, that means the seal hasn't fully created. So you have a few options at that point. You can either just take that particular jar, put it in the fridge and use it within a week, and it's perfectly fine to use that way, or you can put it back in the pressure cooker and reprocess it, and hopefully you create a decent seal that way at that particular time. Other than that, label them off, put them down in your storage, and you're good for about 6 months, anywhere between 6 months to 2 years, depending on how cold the storage you have is. So one thing I want to show you guys as well, I won't do it with these ones because they're still hot and they haven't created their final seal, but you want to take the rings off. And the reason for that is underneath the rings can hold in a lot of moisture, okay? And basically the problem that happens there is these things will rust out quite easily. And if it rusts out, it could also damage the seal that you have on your jar and then contaminating the inside. So take the rings off, you can save them. If you decide you want to gift it, you can put the rings back on and just thumb tight, and then you can gift it, right? The other thing you can do as well is you can just let them dry completely, put the rings back on, and then put them away. But honestly, once the seal's created, the rings do nothing anyway. All they do is they just hold this onto the jar when you're creating the actual initial seal, but once the seal is created, they don't really help keep the seal anyway. So I just take them off, put them in my cupboard, and I use them for next time. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please subscribe to see more videos, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.